Warning: the following podcast contains graphic language that Nancy Reagan and Tipper Gore deemed inappropriate in a civilized society. Maybe your kid should be outside playing in the sunshine rather than listening to adult language on a podcast. But hey, I won't tell you how to raise your kids. Religions and governments and vapid hosts of mainstream media opinion shows are better suited for that job, I suppose. It takes a village to wash your brain. Am I right?
We're here to talk about the political environment and kind of what it means. Some of us are going to have our own views. These are our private views, while all three of us are contributors to our voice in one way or another. Our views don't necessarily represent our voice as a whole, but we also want to make sure that you are aware that we do have a bias. Every person has a bias, and hopefully you'll know that we wear our bias on our sleeve. That way you don't feel like we're trying to deceive you in any way. All right, welcome back to the ProgRam podcast, where you better get with the program, or GTFO, am I right? So, here we are, episode 6. I'm excited. I felt bad. I had some personal stuff come up, so I missed the last episode. Hope you guys didn't miss me too much, but from listening to the podcast, sounds like Jessie and Chris were able to handle things quite well without me, minus the fact that maybe a little bit too long. Maybe these guys should quit running their mouth so much. Gee, oh my gosh.
We definitely lost track of time there.
Yep. Well, as always, introductions. I'm Josh Cameron.
I'm Chris Guru.
And Guru is a Mainer? Is that how you say that? Is that Mainer?
Technically, I am a Maine. I live in Maine. I was not born here. I've been all over the place, but currently I'm in Maine.
I've been to 46 of the 50 states, and Maine is one of those that I haven't been to. So maybe I'll have to come hang out with you sometime. And
well, you might like the weather. It's a lot like Utah.
Yeah,
it looks like Hoth right now.
And you guys have like awesome like English style, like England style, like cliffs, right? Facing.
Oh yeah. The rocks are crazy. You can run across them. There are some beaches with sand as well, but mostly it's cliffs.
Yeah. Well, so. Since last week I didn't have a chance to really talk about my article about going to the Hill, I wanted to briefly talk a little bit about that and also share some good news. If you read my article and with what you guys were talking about, it's good to have an antagonist. It's good to make sure that people who are openly corrupt and openly punching down on those with no money, no power are made uncomfortable. They shouldn't just be able to, they shouldn't just be able to walk around like somebody else as if they aren't affecting others' lives in a negative fashion. The same way that if you like somebody who is a Hollywood actor, what do you say? You say, "Hey, how's it going? Oh my gosh, so excited! That was Tom Cruise," or whatever, whoever it is that you're excited about. Even though I don't like Tom Cruise, I don't know why he just popped in my head. But if there's somebody who's douchebaggy, why can't we do the same thing? Like and so I don't need to, throw shit on you or, throw acid in your face like I'm the Taliban or anything, but I'll be goddamned if I don't do something to make your life a little bit more difficult as you're making the working class lives far more difficult.
And if that's the worst of your first world problems, you're in a pretty good place, I'd have to say.
Dude, for real. And so this guy, as I wrote in the article, so I'm sitting next to this guy, and, I call him openly corrupt without even realizing that it was this guy. And then once I realized after the senator, had mentioned him by name, then he wanted to address it and say, can I address the corruption since it was brought up? And they shot him down. He seemed really nervous. Yeah. And he seemed really nervous as he was walking out. And I don't know if that was just me. I know that there was a Salt Lake Tribune article that said that there was an ethics investigation into this asshole. Yeah. Well, just today, there's a new article saying that this asshole is stepping down. He may have been potentially the most powerful person in the House, and controversial, just super douchebaggy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And so he's stepping down. And so Was I, Josh Cameron, the one to do that? Probably not. Did I maybe push him off the fence? I sure as shit hope so.
You definitely shoved a shoulder there, man. I mean, think about it, right? It could have very well been the straw that broke his back.
Yeah, and just like, oh fuck, now people are actually coming up in person to call me out. Oh shit! It's one thing for a news article that I can obfuscate around, and I can have all my other fellow Republicans circle the wagons. But when I don't have the ability to obfuscate, oh well, shit, what do I do? Oh, well, I better bail.
And you were the writing on the wall, man.
Yeah, hopefully.
You and all the others that railed against him. Yeah.
Yeah, for real. And this is the same asshole that you probably heard about who tried to introduce. Well, he did introduce a bill to rename one of the highways that lead down to these national parks called Trump Highway. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? So then the state party, and I think even Jim DeBacchus is the one who sponsored the bill, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And it was for. Well, if we're going to do Trump Highway, how about we do Stormy Daniels on-ramp or something? It's like, what? That's
wow.
So good. Yep. And so that torpedoed that. Yeah, that went away. Last I heard, too, the House was trying to shit on ballot initiatives to keep them from being implemented until the next legislative session. So the way the legislative session works here in Utah is that it's 45 straight days of just I think sans, I take that back. I think it's 45 days sans weekends, where every workday they're just hammering out bills and just, it's just a marathon of just going over bills and writing them in the law. And so, because of that, if we get these ballot initiatives passed, then the Republicans aren't going to be able to shit on them. So they wanted to delay their implementation so that they had a chance to shit on them next year.
Oh my goodness.
Yep. And so as I understand, the bill to do that actually failed, even though they did bring it back up and try to revive it, which is really good. So I'm glad that
right. Hell yeah. Yep. No, you can't give him all that extra time. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, and then also the Speaker of the House, Greg Hughes, who's another dirtbag, he is no longer running. So he's one of these, super right-leaning cronyist who's stepping down, who doesn't want to continue in an era where there's actually a spotlight on their bullshit, and it's pretty awesome.
I really hope this is a trend.
Yeah, well, and I think it is, dude, because in 2017, what did we see? We saw Virginia. Holy shit! Like. Totally hit their hands against their legs. Boom! How you like me now, motherfuckers? They flipped 16 seats, or did
that sounds about right? Yeah.
And then there were some special elections in Wisconsin, in deep red Oklahoma. There's there was a lesbian mom who won over a Trump district that had like a 30-point pro-GOP disparity, and she won. Yeah, and so she moved the needle like 32 points. That's fucking insane, dude.
Dude, and this, I don't know if people are going to agree with me or not, and if you don't, we now have a Twitter account called Progressive Ram 1. That's at Progressive Ram 1. This just goes to show you that when you put someone who actually reflects the symptoms of the problem that we have in our country right now, i.e. Trump, and he's in power, it motivates the base that's against him to go out and actually do something. We have so many more active people out there now. We have so many more progressives running for office and actually getting a chance to win. And yep. I'm not saying that I thank Trump for this, but I'm saying I think Trump being in office has been the perfect catalyst for us to actually see some real change at the local level, at least. And pretty soon we're probably going to see that same thing happen at the national level.
Oh, dude, totally. And so just like to your point, am I thankful that Trump is being a complete and utter fuck up? Hell no. Is there a happy consequence to the fact of somebody who's so brazenly corrupt that all the cronies around him are like, well, if Trump does it, then I guess I can be brazenly corrupt and show the world my corrupt nature? Fuck yeah, I'm happy that happened. Yeah. Because it needs to get, and what I'm about to say, I am fully aware that being a white man, I'm insulated from some of the fallout. And so this is why I'm so active and to try to protect marginalized communities where I can. But we need the system to get so bad it breaks, because there's no fixing how bad it is. It needs to break, and then we remake it from the ashes, much like a phoenix. And I think ultimately that's kind of what Bernie Sanders' revolution, how it's going to take shape. It may not be the way that he wanted it to take shape, because I think that he ultimately, like Batman, sees how terrible Gotham really is, and he thinks that Gotham can be redeemed, and he thinks the system can be fixed.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced the system can be fixed. I'll still work towards fixing it, though I kind of want it to break, because I think it'd be easier to remake than it would be to fix. That said, I think 2018 is going to solidify that a little bit more, and let me know if that's, how much of a truism that is, because I'm convinced that the House is going to overwhelmingly flip, and I'm also convinced that in the Senate we're going to lose several blue dogs for progressives, and fuck, that'll be awesome.
I will be jumping out of my chair if that happens, and I'm with you. I do see that as the future that we're going to be seeing. Yeah.
And so I know that we kind of want to talk a little bit about the banks. I know that you had an interesting article that you mentioned that Jill Stein tweeted out about everything that's wrong about the Democrats. I'd like to kind of hear your thoughts on that, and then kind of I think that's going to be a great segue into my thoughts on some of the banking bullshit that's going on.
Sounds like a plan. Well, so Jill Stein tweeted out an article from The New Republic written by Alex Shepard on the 7th, so a couple of days ago. And it says the title is Everything Wrong with the Democrats in One Bill. And the gist of it is several Democrats, 17 in fact, are in the Senate and on the side of all of the Republicans trying to push a bill through that is going to unravel the rest of Dodd-Frank. And it's setting a limit to where Dodd-Frank regulations get applied, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're pushing the limit all the way up to $250 billion in assets. And so that lets so many banks do whatever the hell they want below that margin. The CBO report came out and said that this is almost certainly going to bring us to another bank bailout scenario. Yep. And Bernie Sanders has been railing hard about this. And I really like his video that he just released on Twitter as well. He says the mainstream media, or I don't know if he calls them that or not, but in a gist, he says the mainstream media has two different major stories coming out right now. One of them is that the banks are about to be deregulated and the Democrats are helping it go through. The other one is Trump has a gag order on a porn star. Guess which one they're talking about?
You're right, exactly.
Clip after clip after clip. All the major news shows that you think is going to bring you the news and tell you what's really going on in the world, they're completely glazing right over the fact that they're about to deregulate the banks even further and completely shaft the people. And we're going to have to pick that tab up again.
Now, I understand why they're doing it, even if it's in no way justified, especially, guess who one of them motherfucking Democrats are? Or is rather, Doug Jones. So they totally put this guy up as like, he's going to be a champion. And yeah, that's nice that he at least has it in him to try KKK, douchebags that are terrible human beings. But it's not really that hard to not like terrible human beings. It's much harder to see a banker who's nice to you, even though you realize that he's totally wreaking havoc on the working class, but he's nice to you. He says the right niceties. He shakes your hand. He looks you in the eye. He's well dressed, and it's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder to hate him than it is some fat hilljack with whiskey on his breath who's talking about how all them Negroes need to hang.
Jesus,
you know what I mean? And yet, I guarantee there's not a single KKK person alive, including David Duke, that has near as much catastrophic consequences against the working class as the average CEO of a bank.
That is a pretty fair assessment, I'd say. I mean, the KKK is pretty shrunk down now. I think so. The idea that you're portraying here is that they blow things out of proportion so that we're afraid of certain stuff that we ought to not like, or at least some people might fear. But really, and that's minuscule compared to the actual attack on us from the groups that are considered to be the good guys. Right.
Absolutely. It's a way in which you can, you can brainwash Yoda in episode 1, and forgive me for even talking about episode 1. It's something that probably should die and never ever be brought up again. But and also forgive me of my Yoda impersonation I'm about to do. I'm sure it's gonna be fucking terrible, but to get my point across, you know. So Yoda, I can't remember if he was talking to Qui-Gon Jinn or if he was talking to Ben Kenobi, but he was, when they were like, "Hey, we want to train this kid, Anakin Skywalker," and Yoda's talking about how he has so much fear in him for his mother. And he's like, fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hatred. Hatred leads to suffering. And so if you unpack that a little bit, so what's a great way to make people afraid? Make it so that, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very biggest one is physiology. Basically, do you have the means to live? Well, how do I deconstruct that and make it so it's harder for you to live? Well, I make it harder for you to have food and water. So I can potentially dirty your water system, and I can make it so you have shitty wages, and so that you now are not only living hand to mouth, but you're living hand to mouth while you're working 2 jobs. Something that's just fucking absurd. Well, and then what do I do? So now you're afraid. So I want a scapegoat. I want you to scapegoat. And so as soon as I say, well, it's that immigrant that stole your job, or it's that black man who thinks that he has the right to drink from the same drinking fountain as you, or whatever. And so now you're afraid, and then you start to scapegoat. Once you start to scapegoat and start believing that, well, then you start getting angry. Once you start drinking that anger Kool-Aid long enough is when you have that hatred, like the KKK. And once you have that hatred is when you actually start blowing up, like that kid at the school in Florida who just mowed down 17 of his former classmates.
Yeah.
Or Columbine, or Aurora, or any number of mass shooting, or any number of terrible actions where maybe you were gay or black in the wrong part of town, and so you got tied up on the back of a pickup truck and drugged down the road until you died. Because the way our system works, love to hijack the human mechanisms that have been used to protect us for hundreds of thousands of years from getting eaten by a jaguar, and to then have us attack our own. Because if we come together as a class and we realize who's actually fucking us over, and it isn't the immigrant with no money and no power, and it isn't the poor black community with no money and no power, and it isn't the poor black kid who's fucking 10 years old with no money and no power, well, then we might actually start to question who really is at fault here.
Yeah, that is one hell of an unpacking there, and it sparked a thought in my head. This guy, he did a long-term research, and I think with some other fellows, and there was a study done, and now he has his own website, and by golly, I can't think of his name. Maybe after the break I'll be able to come back with that. But he wrote a piece called "The Myth of Whiteness." And the general concept of it is that way back when, America was still being put together, that there was a time when people were, and even before that, people were kind of nationalists, right? Like they would say if they're in France, they're like, fuck the Italians. If they're German, they say fuck the Austrians, that kind of stuff. Yep. And eventually those who have power and wealth and land, they tended to be white, because let's face it, most of the Anglo-Saxon groups were dominants, and they would beat up on the brown people and take their stuff. I mean, that's kind of how it's been through time immemorial. Yep. And what happened is that they started telling the poor, because they noticed that there was a class uprising. And I think this happened in America, but they started telling the poor whites, or the poor people of European descent, that they were the same as the rich people of European descent. And they called the people who weren't, who were people of color, they would call them blacks and browns. And they called the people who were of European descent but poor white. And they would say that you can be just like me if you can help me keep those other people back, because they're not like us. And they're going to be stealing your women, and they're going to be drinking your water, and they're going to taint your land, and they're going to screw up your DNA and all that. And then you can't be like us anymore. And so, long story short, being white is a thing that was created to try to get us to steer away from the class war that needed to happen, because also
it has always been rich versus poor. It's always been haves versus have-nots. And now we have all these other little factions breaking off, right?
Yep.
And anyway, that's the only point I had there.
So that book was by Maurice Berger, is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I looked it up while you were talking. White Lies, Race, and the Myths of Whiteness.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, another really good authority on whiteness is Tim Weiss.
Yes, that's the name I was thinking of. He has a website, Anti-Racism. Yeah,
probably. Yeah, he's pretty awesome. I like hearing him talk. He's quite interesting, well articulate, and has some really poignant views and ideas, and can really unpack the history. And it's so interesting how if a black person says, hey, I don't like the way that my race has been treated in America, then a white person, gross generalization, average white guy, like, that was such a long time ago. You can't talk about that. That was a long time ago. Yeah. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, look here, precious. Like, that's all you do is talk about, well, this was a country founded on white people. We stole the Indians' land because because we were. It was somehow gifted us because of manifest destiny because we were white. I mean, because we were Christian. You know what I mean, or whatever the fuck that they want to say. Insert proper adjective here for why you felt justified in your ancestors, murdering tens of millions, upwards of 100 million Native Americans throughout North and South America.
It's disgusting.
It's incredibly disgusting, and it's amazing how if it's your history, then it's totally cool. If it's their history, whoa, what the fuck you doing, man? You can't talk about that.
Well, like anybody remembering back to like a American history in high school, right? They just call it Western expansionism and the Monroe Doctrine and all these things that people wrote down that said we're justified in whatever we have to do to take that because manifest destiny, right? Well, you understand we manifest destiny nearly 100 million people to death in order to do that?
Well, and if you consider like the malfeasance, I mean, just the utter malfeasance of telling these Native Americans, look, we want to give you goods for your land, and the fact that they trusted these white devils, if you will, and then in many cases, these white people gave them blankets that had smallpox scabs on them, and so now they're just wiping out, murdering vast swaths and vast tribes through biological warfare, and be like, meh, God ordained it. Really? Like this is the God that you want to follow, that thinks that it's cool to murder all these people in his image? I believe the Bible says that all men are created in God's image. Whether I believe the Bible or not is completely not the point of what's written in there. And if you say that you follow the Bible, and the Bible all throughout it is war, 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 you don't follow me, you die. You don't do exactly what I say, you die. In fact, I'll even make a bet with the devil that my most faithful servant Job can go through his entire family being murdered, boils all over his body, the worst amount of horror that a person can go through, and fuck it, I'll give him a new family. Like, really? Yeah. Really, like that flippant nature? Like this, like no wonder so many evangelicals love Trump. That's like the same fucking thing.
Somebody got drunk when they wrote that part.
Well, and yeah, dude, and it's
some of those stories are so outlandish. Yeah,
it really is pretty outlandish, and that's the danger of any belief system that says if you believe first and then you'll see. You're already setting yourself up for brainwashing because you're suspending any disbelief. You're already, you're looking to whoever your pastor or your preacher or your priest is as a higher authority. And in a manner of speaking, they're now your mentor. And since you look up to them and since you're suspending your disbelief, anything they say effectively becomes gospel. And that's fucking dangerous because people are human and we make mistakes. And unfortunately, we act upon the desires of the flesh, and often the desires of the flesh are quite selfish. And that's why you'll see in many cases you'll have churches where roof shingles are falling off, but the pastor's driving a $200,000 Jaguar.
Yeah, and it's in human nature to want the answer, right? It's human nature to seek out why are we here, the answer to all those things. And someone's out there saying, hey, look, we have it right over here. All you have to do is follow these things and we'll be able to explain it all to you and you'll be fine.
Yep.
Get into it. And I don't know. I don't mind that people are religious, and I don't mind that they believe in what they believe in. As I'd really like them to not mind that I don't. You know,
Right.
that's kind of the hypocrisy I have there. It's that they tell me that I'm horrible because I don't believe that their religion got it correct. They'll call me an atheist, and I'm not. I just don't believe in organized religion. I think that honestly, if there is a God, or there is a God, but it's so big, who the fuck are we to explain to each other what the hell's going on up there? Especially when we have so many different stories.
Yeah, and when you need to have that answer, and you divorce yourself from the idea that it's the journey, not the destination, that's important. And then when you consider that, what's the new religion? Politics. And now it kind of starts to understand why, if you question the ordained one or the anointed one, Hillary Clinton on the left, or quote unquote on the left, actually on the right. But
pinned to the center,
right? Then you get screamed at. Why? Because now you're challenging views much the same way as if you were to challenge organized religion. People are going to start screaming at you, call you an atheist, and get mad. And since politics is the new religion, you get the any blue magoo as long as it's a blue magoo. Speaking of which, I really like the Twitter account Blue Magoo.
Actually, that brings up a great point. When you're out there arguing in Twitter, if you happen to be a person who argues on Twitter, I am. Even when I'm wrong, it's just fun for me. You come across people that have a different view in politics than you do. So for an example, for me, I am not into Hillary Clinton. I don't like her at all, and I did not vote for her, and I would not have. I didn't vote for Trump either, so rest your souls. But I would get into arguments with people who were Hillary supporters, and the place they were coming from was belief without scrutiny. And what was making me outraged was I was simply asking them to scrutinize it a little, and they were coming back with, "Who the hell are you? If we scrutinize this, then Trump wins." And they jump right into what else you were talking about, the fear thing, right? They're pushing that fear. They want you. It's like misery loves company, fear loves company. All of these, they're in a negative place, and they want you to just latch on with them and think that this is going to carry you to salvation. And yeah, you're totally right. Politics have become the new religion. It probably has been for a little bit, but it's getting more and more so these days, especially with the media jumping on the bandwagon.
Well, and I suspect that you're treated much the same way that I was treated when I said, well, wait a minute. I think that Hillary's Wall Street ties are quite concerning. Well, you're just a Bernie bro.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so wait a minute a second. So what if I said, well, you're just a dumb woman? Like, would that be acceptable?
Absolutely not. That's a bit of a double standard there too.
Yeah, it's a total double standard. And so why is it okay for you to ad hominem me, but not okay for me to ad hominem back? Not that I don't think that ad hominems are justified. There's times where I'll laugh. Like if a comedian is talking about things, they're there to be edgy. They're there to make you laugh. And so I'll probably laugh because I understand that they're not trying to be serious. They're just trying to talk shit to elicit a response.
Right.
But then also, I mention, what about her ties to Wall Street? How dare you question her? What are you, a Bernie bro? And then now what do we find out? Oh my gosh, her VP. Hillary Clinton's VP is one of these assholes who voted to roll back the Dodd-Frank.
Good old Tim Kaine of Virginia.
Yeah, right. And so everything that Bernie bros have been talking about, and I use Bernie bros tongue in cheek,
right.
And everything that we've been talking about is basically coming to pass because these people aren't trying to change their colors. Now they're looking to see how they can get in good with Trump. Hell, Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin's daughter is the one who jacked up the price on EpiPens. I'm sure all of you have heard about that. And so what did he do? He voted on every goddamn cabinet appointee, especially Jeff Sessions, because if that ever goes to the Department of Justice, Jeff Sessions is going to be the one overseeing that. And he wants to make sure that his cronyism gets him somewhere good. That's why he goes out of his way to snuggle up next to Fox News and be like, hey, I'm a blue dog. I also like Republicans. I fall over myself to make deals with Republicans. Look at me. Hey, I'm Joe Manchin. I'm just your little puppet here. I'm a Democrat. Yeah. And it's this so blue no matter who is a believe first and see later, which is dangerous. And so we need to be able to scrutinize. And Bernie, I brought up Bernie. Why is Bernie cool? Because he has a goddamn good policy and he's got a great record. But if his policy turned neo-lib or neoconservative, well, you better believe I would no longer start looking at him as a leader, and I'd be looking for somebody else to be our leader, like maybe a Tulsi Gabbard or maybe a Ro Khanna or
You're
maybe
damn right.
and so people who actually have the ability and the cojones, if you will, to stand up and speak truth to power.
What I don't understand is how the folks that are claiming to be part of the resistance, and it really, I think my anger is more towards the leadership of it, not necessarily the followers, because I think their heart is in the right place. People showing up to marches, people who are railing against Trump and trying to do what they can in order to help progressives and other people out. Not just progressives, whatever, just new blood get into the system, right? People who aren't necessarily corrupted yet. Those folks are fine, but the resistance, the Chuck Schumers of the world, even though he's not sponsoring this bill, he's also not doing anything to stop it, and he's also supporting all of these Democrats, the 17 who are sponsoring this bill. And I really want to know if anyone in the media, the mainstream media, right, have the guts to cover this objectively and not try to cover it up and not try to smooth it over and say, well, there's also provisions in there that will let you freeze your credit at will whenever you want. That's a good thing for consumers. And there's also, maybe that is a good thing for consumers, but that's the same kind of shit that they do to all these pork barrel bills that they pass. They tack stuff on, and other Democrats hold out and say, well, I'll vote on it, but only if you allow me to do this, that, and the other for my constituents. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the big problem, Bernie is like making it black and white for you, and everyone's ignoring it.
Yeah, of course, because that's not where the lobbyist money comes in. What blows my mind is that Tim Kaine, senator for Virginia, just saw an overwhelming shift in local offices from overwhelmingly red to an even split red and blue. And he's like, yeah, I'll still vote with Republicans. Like, really? Like, you don't see the writing on the wall? Like, are you looking to maybe just say that you're not going to run again? Is that what's going on? Like, are you trying to make out as much money as you can and get all these people to give you donations, and then you're just going to say, oh, psych, I'm not going to run again, and just drop out? Or have you legitimately been drinking this bullshit Kool-Aid for so long that you really feel that if a lobbyist pays you $40,000 and you give them 1,000 times return on investment, that's actually a good thing for the American people.
Yep. And even if he's getting all these campaign donations, and then he's not going to run again. And what they do is they just have to say, well, I'm keeping my political options open. And as long as you say that, you can keep the gravy train going. You just don't close the account. And what would they do with the money? They can't write themselves a check, but what they do is that's all their food money. They go out to eat every single night. They go and put new clothes on their back for image consulting. They pay consulting fees to groups that they also get kickbacks from, like 3 parties away from themselves, so that it doesn't get traced back. These fuckers are corrupt, and we have to kick them out. And to quote my friend Johnny Axam, reveal and replace.
Yeah, right. Reveal and replace. And this is where living in Trumpistan right now actually benefits them. Because he invites them all to stand right in the circle where the spotlight's going to shine. Yeah. And like, I mean, you and I are the same age, 37. Is that correct?
A couple of months off. I'm 38, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So anyway, so we're roughly the same age. And so have you ever been alive and as you've been alive, have you ever been as hyper aware of cabinet positions, like, I don't know, relatively obscure ones like the Secretary of Education?
Hell no. I mean, eventually I became aware of that, but not at the scale, and especially I don't ever recall it being a topic of discussion amongst regular folk who aren't policy wonks who don't want to talk about politics. Now I have people who have never spoken to me before about politics at my regular day job. And then these are cooks and servers and the people making pastries and stuff. They don't follow politics. Half of them don't even vote. And now they're all talking about it. It's like this, I know he's not, but wouldn't it be fucking crazy if Trump pulled a mask off and he's like, I just did this in order to, take all the heat and expose all the nonsense. Let's go flip everything back to the way it needs to be.
Well, and so while he's not going to rip that mask off, and it is kind of funny to think of, but at the same time, why aren't the Democrats hijacking the very mechanism that causes Trump to be so openly corrupt?
Because it allows them to be openly corrupt.
Right, exactly. So and let's add, if Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer were sincere and they actually wanted to help people, why wouldn't they go up to Trump and say, you know what, if you pass Medicare for all, we would build the tallest statue. You know what? Fuck, we might even add your face to Mount Rushmore. You better believe that dude would get a giant boner and be like, well, fuck, Medicare for all tomorrow. Guaranteed,
dude.
Guarantee. And that's stroke his ego. You can stroke his ego for good.
Grab him by the ego.
Yeah, exactly. Grab him by the ego and lead him around by the ego. So if he needs to be a Joffrey, he's like as evil as Joffrey Baratheon was on Game of Thrones. As evil as he was far smarter than Trump. And Trump is too stupid to be able to see that you're actually hoodwinking him and getting him to do good things by stroking his ego. And so fucking do it. And talk his game. Don't just be a never Trump for the sake of the fact that he's Trump. Be a never Trump because his policy fucking sucks. But if his policy doesn't suck, his policy actually becomes something good, well then start talking about and then say, well, you know what? Start supporting that. I support the president in his push for this. That's an honorable thing. And I support the president in putting higher regulations on the bank. What an honorable president. It's nice to see somebody who doesn't just bail out the banks like Barack Obama. Boom, dude, that would give him the biggest boner ever. So do it.
It would. And he while he was pandering during the general election, he made a lot of comments that were really populist and really Bernie-esque, to be honest, because we don't have another champion of those policies dating back further than 40 years.
Right.
And he has reneged on all of them. In fact, he hasn't even approached half of them anyway. And I'm not saying that was compelling enough to be able to vote for him, because I could see that he was pandering, of course. But the fact that he was pandering goes to show you that they did research and they polled people and they found out that was what they wanted to hear. Well, guess what? It's because it's what we want. So who's out there that's willing to actually put their fucking money where their mouth is and give us what we want? Because you already know what it is. You don't have to keep surveying to find out. In fact, I personally wholeheartedly hope that Tulsi Gabbard is able to light a match like Bernie did in 2020. I don't know if Bernie's running or not, but I really think that she's the kind of person that would be able to pull that off. And by God, she hasn't done anything yet to make me feel like I can't trust her.
Right. And so I think it's assuredly, unless Bernie suffers some sort of stroke or heart attack or age-related something or another, I think it's a done deal that he's going to run for 2020.
They're going to wheel him out. Okay.
Right.
I shouldn't even say that. He's so much more fit than some of the senators out there that are younger than him.
I know,
you
dude.
Ever seen that guy walk down a hallway? Holy shit.
I know, dude. I saw him running just to a damn meeting just to go speak. And during the primaries. I mean, that guy is all over the place. And so, again, coming back to policy, the point isn't that Bernie is a 700-year-old Jew that combs his hair with a balloon, so somehow that inspires me. The point is that this is a guy who, when he was in college, handcuffed himself to a black woman to fight racial segregation.
Yep.
This is a man that for 40 years has fought against bullshit unnecessary wars, bullshit unnecessary segregation, bullshit unnecessary punching down on the poor. And that should be our purity test. A purity test should be, do you add a net positive value to the 99%? Or do you add a net negative value? If you add a net negative, that's a non-starter. Tim Kaine adds a net negative. Hillary Clinton, what did she do? And this is what a lot of people forget about. And Syria conflict. We crossed a the red line that Obama talked about. Cross the red line. Now we're going to bomb you. So what did he do? He said, well, you know what? I'm a little hesitant to go into war because I know Americans are sick of war, but I bet I could still get this. So you know what? I'm going to placate the public, kick it to them and see what they say. And overwhelmingly, people said, no more war.
Right.
And so what did Hillary Clinton do? Spend all of 2016 calling for a no-fly zone, which would have gotten us into war both with Syria and with Russia. And so she literally went against the will of the people, literally went against the voice of the people, and yet somehow 13 Twitter bots, 13 Russian Twitter bots who speak broken English are the ones who threw the election? Really?
Ooh, and they did sophisticated testing and tweaking to make them authentic looking. Yeah, I saw some of that on Jimmy Dore. I could not believe it. That is absolutely insane. And furthermore, I was getting rebuttals too from the Hillary supporters, but she champions women and children around the world. Which women and children? The 50,000 children in Iraq that got destroyed, that her good friend said that it was worth it because we were able to stop Saddam?
Right.
I mean,
or maybe the millions
Albright,
of Yemeni
right? She
children
said
many of the Yemeni children are being starved to death. Maybe the children in Honduras, that when she inspired the coup in 2009 and made it literally the most dangerous fucking place in the world per capita, maybe it was them that are being murdered by gangsters and impoverished and starving to death and wasting away. But maybe it was them that she champions. Maybe it was the women in this country when Bernie Sanders said, let's raise minimum wage to $15. And she said, no, whoa, maybe 12. Maybe it was the women of color that overwhelmingly work these minimum wage jobs. Maybe it was them that she championed when she said, I don't think that you deserve a higher wage. So it must have been them that she was championing.
Yeah, it was probably them. But I digress.
Right. And so it's incredible how easily it is to hijack a mindset that isn't a believe first, see later mindset. And it's no good. And I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need to have all the answers. I don't want to have all the answers. That's fucking boring. I want to have an honest debate. I want to have an honest conversation. I want to have an authentic disagreement, and I want to be able to tease that out so we can figure out how to bridge the disparity between your views and my views. And even if we both walk away unhappy because we didn't get everything we wanted, but it adds a net positive value where Medicare for all would do that, because even if you're rich and you don't need to, and you don't need to worry about money, you don't need to worry about the fact that a night in the hospital is $2 or $3 grand. You're still going to benefit from not having to pay it, but it benefits everybody. Free college education. Again, even if you're ultra rich and you don't need to worry about it, you're still benefiting by the fact that you don't have to pay it, and it benefits everybody else. Absolving the college debt. That may not necessarily benefit everybody as far as who holds debt, but we now have studies that prove that college loan debt is keeping the economy from being as vibrant as it could be, which means that it's preventing new jobs, it's preventing new innovation, it's keeping people down lower and preventing them from reaching the American dream, preventing them from being the next round of entrepreneurs, preventing them from being the next round of innovators. And how many Elon Musk do we have right now that are on food stamps and that lost their ability to have food stamps for, I don't know what the month or however long it was that when Orrin Hatch was talking about how we don't have the money for food stamps because we need to give a $1.5 trillion windfall to the ultra rich. Right. And then how many of those Elon Musk wasted away? Or how many of those are kids that need to figure out how they can make money because their mom works 3 jobs and their dad's in prison, and so that they have to go sell drugs, the only thing that they can do because they can't legally work, and then they get put into the system, and then they're fucked.
The United States is the only modern country right now, and modern first world country right now, where its population, the majority of us, are afraid of healthcare and loan debt. We're afraid to go to college, some of us, because of how expensive it's going to be. We're afraid to even go to the doctor because who knows what they'll find, and then all of a sudden you're $100,000 in debt. We fear the stuff that we're supposed to be able to be thankful for, right? Well, the things that as a society we should be giving to each other in order to make us all rise up. You can't just, I don't know, you can't just tie some hot air balloons to the richest giant boats and think that the little ones are going to come up with them. They're just going to rise above the tide. We're all still floating at the bottom.
Exactly.
But the takeaway I get from some of the stuff you've been saying here is honestly support policies that help the rest of us out. Support policies that help out people that are just like you and me. And it doesn't matter who those policies come from. If Trump is to come out tomorrow and say, I want healthcare for all and I want it free and I want to replicate what the Canadians used to have and not the weird corrupt shit that it's turned into now, and I think we can do it, and we're going to take some money out of the military budget because guess what? They have enough. And we're going to make it happen, and it's not going to cost us a hell of a lot of anything. And we're going to tax Wall Street to make sure this works. Who is going to rail against that just because Trump said it, right? Obviously, he's not going to fucking say it. But if he did, I really think that a lot of these anti-Trump people would find a way to be against it.
Of course they would.
And that's the fucking problem.
And because they need a system of us versus them. Otherwise, they lose all power. And to come back to your points about just how people are afraid to go to the hospital just because of the money. What about Heather Holland, the 38-year-old elementary school teacher in Texas who died from complications to the flu because she delayed picking up her medication based on a $116 copay? She couldn't pay $116. She's supposed to be educating our fucking children. This is somebody that we are supposed to honor and say and fucking give thanks. Fucking thank you. Thank you for dealing with my kid for 6 hours, 8, however long, and then not only that times 30, times 30 or however many other kids there are, and yet we're just like, no, fuck them. And it's incredible how we demonize the working class and we demonize people with no money, no power, and as long as the rich are making money, well then sure we'll be fine. And it's like on Star Wars Episode 8. We're stuck, the vast majority of people in America are stuck looking through the same rose-colored glasses as Finn. When they went down to the planet to see the worst people in the galaxy, as Rose said, well, yeah. Who were they? They were arms dealers. Well, Finn was like, "Oh, this is great. How is it that you don't like these people? This is amazing. Oh my gosh,
they're all so pretty." Yeah.
Yeah, they're all so pretty, and let's I don't get what it is that you don't like, Rose, and what does Rose say? To fucking scratch under the surface there, kid. Look a little closer, and then he sees the slavery, and then he sees the maltreatment of the animals, and then it's like, oh my gosh, so these guys make all their money off of murdering planets, literally, and so we need to become more like Rose and less like Finn.
More like Rose and less like Finn. You know what? And on that note, we're going to have to go ahead and cut for a commercial. But when we get back, we're going to tackle some more of this stuff. Stay tuned.
Don't hear a commercial? I don't hear a commercial. Let's fix this problem together. Contact us. We'll advertise your shit.
And so, I hope that you guys like our commercials. We, obviously, we do this show because we like doing the show. We probably also have an unhealthy relationship with the sound of our own voice and how much we like it.
And it's cathartic because working with Our Voice USA, it's nonpartisan, and here we get to let our freak flags fly.
Yeah, right. And I hope that I don't expect everyone who listens to this to agree with me. And in fact, I hope that you don't all agree with me, and I hope that you can challenge my ideas and maybe help me see your point of view. But I hope that you also can see that we're pretty genuine. I think that we're also pretty fair. I think that we attack Republicans and Democrats alike, and we try to talk about objective truths in the sense of, again, objective truths that add to the human condition or objective truths that take away from the human condition.
Yeah, I would say that is absolutely true.
Yep. Ultimately, I hope that you think that we're fair. I hope that you guys see that we try to, in a nonpartisan fashion, strike down partisanship and talk about the dangers of that, because tribalism is not a good thing. Another thing that I think Chris and I are in agreement with that we'd like to talk about is that, we can get a little dark and we can get a little depressing. We can get kind of angry at the bullshit going on. But I wanted to talk about something a little bit more uplifting, and I'd love to hear your ideas on this as well, Chris. And I know that the kids that are getting engaged from the Florida school, like a lot of it is around gun violence. But the fact that these kids are getting engaged, and holy shit, in less than a week, they got Marco Rubio to hold a town hall. They got him to agree to up the age to 21. Him specifically say that he'd take those rights away if that is a right from somebody to buy an assault rifle at 18. And holy shit, dude! It seemed like the adults in the room. In the Senate, the federal Senate, and the federal House are just fucking worthless. And Jesus Christ, am I heartened to see that the kids, I think, are going to be the means to our salvation.
Absolutely. That's the demographic that matters the most. And I don't mean to sound too Whitney Houston and say the children are our future, because, well, no shit. But to see them rally around each other and to have these mass walkouts all across the country, I completely support them 100% in solidarity with that. And I have said in the past, I think in the last episode, maybe 2 episodes ago, I'm not sure now, but I was commenting on how Hogg's dad works for a weapons manufacturer, and I also said that that the sins of the father should not be the burden of the son, right? So I don't hold that against David Hogg. I just think that maybe it would be interesting if somebody pointed that out. But to be honest, I don't even give a shit about that. And especially the folks out there who are making statements like none of this really happened or it was all staged. CNN's town hall, yeah, they set those questions up, no shit. But the rest of it is real. Kids died. The fact that they're not interviewing the parents of the dead children, I mean, I'd like to hear what their take is, but to be honest, would you want to get interviewed right after something that horrific happened to you? Fuck no. Are you kidding me? They're avoiding it. And what's really important here, though, is what you're saying, is that it's rallying the next generation. It's rallying the people who are just old enough to vote or who are going to be able to vote in 2020. We might actually see, if this momentum can keep up, the highest voter turnout in more than 50 years.
Well, and for what it's worth, me being a combat vet, I've been to war. I've seen things I can't unsee. I've been scared before, and you can't be brave unless you're scared. And being brave is acting in spite of being afraid. And that's what these kids are doing. They realize that the NRA is going to put a target on them, and they're saying, fuck you. And god damn, does that make me so fucking proud.
I love it.
That's what it is to be patriotic. Being patriotic isn't that you are standing up and saying the Pledge of Allegiance, which is written by a flag maker to sell more flags. Being patriotic is to stand up and say, what the fuck?
Yep.
Our
to
lives
stand
are worth
in the
better.
face of fear, not to turn away from it.
Yeah, exactly. And then, these kids that were, what was it, a dozen kids that were, or maybe 8 kids that were protesting outside of Mitch McConnell's office. Fuck yes. Let's do it. We need these kids. If they have the ability to get mainstream media to focus on good things, which is unfortunate that it takes such a horrific act for mainstream media to focus on things that we actually need to focus on. But you know what? I'll take it. And this is why, you're going to be marching for the March for Our Lives, the Boston chapter. Is that correct?
You're damn right I am.
Yep, and I'm going to be marching in the Salt Lake City chapter, and
Nice.
I'll be there with my iconic, American flag, my bullhorn, my Our Voice shirt, because not only Our Voice, the organization, but as a population, as a citizenry, our voice demands to be heard, and we demand to be heard as we say, no fucking more. No more are the poor to be ground up to become Soylent Green for the rich. No more are we just nothing more than profit margin mechanisms for the ultra rich to exploit for their own means. And shit's a changing, guys. And you can either get with the act and start helping us and work with us to start enacting policy that's going to help the 99%. or bye, Felicia. And trust me, when that door hits your ass on the way out, oh man, is it gonna hurt.
Woo, buddy. You know, I always during the podcast try to search for the right comment to be the title, and I do believe you just spoke it, and it is "Shit's a Changin'." That sums it right up, and that is such a good thing. And you know, I'm going to be at that Boston rally, and I'm going to be marching with them, and I'm going to be wearing my Our Voice T-shirt. I believe my girlfriend and her friends are coming with us, and they're going to be producing periscopes so that everybody can join in on Twitter and Facebook and watch if they weren't able to make it out there. But this stuff is important, you know? I mean, it's a march, yeah. And what's going to come of it? It's all about the audience, right? It's even when you're in an argument with somebody in the middle of Twitter, it's not about that person that you're arguing with. You're not going to change their mind. It's about the people who are watching. And what these marches are about is trying to bring up some civic pride in people. Not only those who are in the march, but the people who are the parents of those who are in the march, like the people who are watching it on television. This shit's important, damn it. And I think everyone should get involved. And I am, like you said, man, I'm so grateful that these kids are taking this opportunity and not squandering it.
Well, and like Sarah Chadwick in particular, you know, we hear a lot of stuff about you know, David Hogg because, you know, what's his name, Alex Jones gets triggered by him, but Sarah Chadwick, I don't know if you've seen the video. She's the one that recorded they're calling it a parody video, but it's a smackdown of Dana Lech. I realize that her last name isn't pronounced Lech, but I think it fits better.
I did not see that. No.
Dude, you need to see it.
Okay.
I will send you the link, so maybe you can even link it as well. But she talks about how the NRA, you know, so Dana Lech is talking about, like, you know, for those of you who are trying to take away rights, you know, your time is coming up. And then so she's like, for those of you who stand there holding an hourglass trying to tell us our time is up, your time is up. And she's like, you know, she's basically, again, under that same premise, shit's a changing, motherfucker. And you better strap in. You better hold the fuck tight. Yeah, your glory days are over, kid. And,
bravo.
yeah, dude, it's fucking awesome. You'll love it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, send me that link. I'll put it up on our Twitter feed. Oh, goodness. Well, that really, I don't know. I have to tell you, the prospect of that rally, these different laws getting passed, or at least just people talking about it, right? People actually having conversations.
Yep.
I don't know. It's bringing up those good feelings that we were all getting during the primary, right? Where we thought that shit was going to change during the Democratic primary, and it didn't. But that doesn't mean that we have to give up. In fact, giving up would have never gotten us to where we are today, right?
Right.
So,
well, I mean, the thing is that your mind is a muscle, and we are just now inviting in people who haven't been part of the political process into the political process. And so if you haven't used your mind in a manner in which affects the political process, you're going to be like somebody with weak muscles. You can only lift so much before you reach muscle failure. But the more you push your cognitive boundaries, the more that you stretch the limits of your mind, the more adept that you'll be, the sharper your mind will be, the more wit that you'll have, and the better you'll be able to respond. And that's what we need to be able to do, is augment these kids and augment even the elderly who want to get in and who want to inject their humanity into the system, and augment them and help them and be a means, whether it be a beacon or be the yellow brick road, be something to show them the way that they can better, you know, enact change and make their voice be heard. Like on our newly renamed page, the what's it called again? I'm so bad for not knowing that. The one that was the Our Voice collaboration page.
Now it's We the People Must Collaborate.
Yeah, we the people must collaborate. You know, a lady said that she wants to run for office, doesn't know how. Can you help? Well,
she got smothered with help.
Yep, and I've been there. I've been that guy that's like, I needed to do something. What do I do? So I reached out to somebody who was in the know, who told me to basically get in touch with the county executive chair for the Democratic Party and just say, how do I get involved? And then from there, that led me to my legislative chair, who got me on board to become a delegate. And since I was a delegate, I was able to go to the county and state conventions and vote and have a better understanding of how that works. And then I would go to central committee meetings. I would go to planning committee, and so the more you're involved, the more you use that muscle, the more adept that muscle becomes. And so this is where those of us who have any means of understanding how others can get involved and how others can enact that change and how others can help, we need to help show them the way and not say, well, this is how I do it, so you should too. Say, this is how I got started. Maybe this will help you as well.
Teach the man to fish. Not to be religious, but I do like some of those sentiments, definitely. There are people out there, there is so much potential energy, so much potential political change energy out there, and all it needs is a catalyst, and it turns into expressed
Kinetic
energy.
energy. So you've got all that potential energy that's just ready for something to push it and turn into kinetic energy, and boom. And so I hear me now, quote me later. Hopefully I can have one of those little Cenk Uygur pictures where he's like hovering over a crystal ball. But the House is going to overwhelmingly shift blue. The Senate is going to become blue, but it's not going to be a supermajority. But regardless, I think even those on the right are going to have some cronyism fall to the wayside, and those on the left absolutely will. So I think a lot of crony capitalists that are in the Democratic Party are going to lose their seat to real populists, people who actually understand the pain of the working class and they want to actually help, and they plan on adding that net positive value to the human condition.
I think that you're absolutely right, and I have a prediction. That was a beautiful prediction, by the way. I have a prediction, and it's a little further out, and it's filling me with hope as well. Two things: one, Trump is going to be a one-term president, and two, we're going to be in a better position in 2020 than we are today, and it won't be because of him; it'll be because of the rest of us.
Yep.
And it may be the first time in a long time that it's because of the rest of us that we've gotten where we need to go, because they're steering the ship in the wrong direction. And so we need to tie them up and take the wheel.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that sentiment. And so nobody's going to save us but ourselves. Think about that a minute. Obama was like, be the change that you've been waiting for. And like, that's definitely a truism, and that's definitely something that we need. And I think he said that because he realized that he wasn't going to be that change. He ran on hope and change, but he gave us even more of the status quo and even more income and wealth inequality. And so he realized that he couldn't do it himself, or he was unwilling to do it. And so it's up to us. Nobody's going to save us but ourselves.
And Bernie piggybacked right on there with the "it's not me, it's us."
Yep, exactly.
We can't be looking to an individual to be the one that's going to provide anything. They might have a good policy or a good bill, and you want to jump on that bandwagon and help push those things through. But you need to remember that you're the one with the power. It's not them. You give them power, but you're the one with the power to give away.
Yep, I totally agree.
Well, we're going to have to cut it short this week. Any last parting words of wisdom for us?
Ultimately, my biggest takeaway is just if you have a voice and you have ideas, find out how you can express them in a way in which people have to listen. You might want to run for office, even if you don't think you can win. If you run for office, that's the best way for people to have to take you serious and at least have to listen to some of your views. Even when I ran for mayor, I didn't win, but you know what? The Salt Lake Tribune called me up and said, "Hey, I see you're running for mayor. Can you talk about, your views?" And so they didn't put much on there, but they said, Joshua Cameron, veteran, former Bernie supporter who, like Bernie is hoping to help, and it was pretty short and sweet, but, and it starts to get your ideas out there. As you get your ideas out there, you start to get connected to people who also are looking not only to do the same thing, but are currently voting on whether it be policy, voting on positions within the party. And the more you get connected to the strings of power, the more that you can start manipulating those strings of power. And I encourage you to manipulate away, but surround yourself with people who will call you on your bullshit. So if you start manipulating in a way that takes away from the human condition, you have real friends that are going to call you on your bullshit and that can help you calibrate back to what you should be, a true humanist, a true populist, a true person who wants to add that net positive value. Otherwise, we all become crony capitalists, and then our country just devolves the same way that the Roman Empire does. And how does that help us? How does that help the world? And how does that help the American dream?
I love it. That is awesome. It reminded me of Lincoln's team of rivals.
Nice.
Got to keep them honest. I have one word of wisdom, and it's damn sure not anywhere near as eloquent as that. But it's as you're out there fighting the assholes, don't forget it's not about the assholes. It's about the audience.
Nice, man. Very nice. I like that.
All right. Well,
all right.
Josh, it's been a pleasure, and take care. And next week, perhaps we'll be able to get you and Jessie in the same room at the same time, so we all
I know
the same guy.
Yep. Awesome. Well, hey, man. Like always, it's a pleasure. I hope that our ideas can help others, figure out how they can make their part of the world that much better just by pinging the system.
Right on, man. Take it easy, Josh.
Right. Hey, you too, man.
Bye, everybody.